Hi everyone and welcome to Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host Anthony Ventrilo and this is my co-host. Hello, I'm Luke Owen. No, you're not. No. Oh, sorry about that. Just a little excited. Alright, let's try it again. 3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm Anthony Ventrilo and welcome to Classic Gamer 74. And I'm Ollie Davis. No, you're not Ollie Davis either. Oh. Let me guess, you're excited about the little tiff between Wrestle Talk and Cultaholic, right? You know it. Support Wrestle Talk. Down with Cultaholic. Ha ha ha! Hi everyone and welcome to Classic Gamer 74. I am your host Anthony Ventrilo and this is episode 15, Atari 2600 Prototypes, Part 1. The video game crash of 1983 and 84 had a detrimental effect on the video game world. Video game companies had created and planned for many games to be released in the coming years, and several of those games were canceled, even though many of them were actually finished. Among those that were canceled was Six Pack, based on the film starring Kenny Rogers, and of course McDonald's, which I discussed way back in the very first episode, and also on this same ad, The Lord of the Rings, Journey to Rivendell. In this episode and the next, I'm going to discuss several of other prototypes. Some were finished, some not, and many of these games you have heard of, and there are others you probably never knew existed. So let's go ahead and get started. First on the list is Atari's own Garfield. This was set to be released in 1984 and was programmed by Steve Wojda. Alright, in this game you are Garfield, everyone's favorite fat cat. In this first scene you're catching burgers, and in this scene you're ducking under potted plants on the fence, and the overall object of the game is to rescue Nermal. Now you're on top of the house and there's Odie. Don't let him get you. And jumped over. Good. Here we are again with the burgers. Now according to Steve Wojda, the game was just got hit. The game was just about finished. He had about 2 or 3 months worth of tweaking to do on the game, so it's just about as finished as you're going to get. Well, after the prototype was discovered, Jim Davis allowed there's Nermal. Jim Davis allowed the game to be dumped into ROM format so that the fans could enjoy it. Now this scene I know is beyond weird, and it's supposed to be like a dream sequence, but you know. Next up is another game from Atari. This game is Bugs Bunny, which was programmed by Bob Palaro and Alan J. Murphy, and it was set to be released in 1983. Alright, in this game you're Bugs Bunny, and you are trying to avoid getting shot by Elmer Fudd. With each level, you have to jump in your bunny hole before getting shot. And when you're on the top board, you can actually steal Elmer Fudd's bullets so he doesn't get you. The game gets really fast-paced really quickly. The game was actually completed, but the reason it wasn't released was because at that time Atari was trying to make games for children, and it was between this and Snoopy and the Red Baron, and Snoopy and the Red Baron tested better with children, and they felt that this game was too fast-paced and kind of got too hard really quickly, and it would turn off children, so therefore this game was canceled. It is readily available in ROM format, so definitely head over to AtariAge.com and download this game and give it a try, because it is a whole lot of fun. Next up we have Cabbage Patch Kids Adventures in the Park. This was set to be released by Coleco in 1984 and was programmed by Ed Temple. Now, of course, many of you remember the Cabbage Patch Kids. These were those chubby little dolls that started a lot of fights in stores because all the kids had to have them. And of course, you know the expression here on Classic Gamer 74, if it was big in the 80s, it got made into a video game. Well, Coleco, of course, was famous for making great video games for the ColecoVision, but crappy games for the Atari and for the Intellivision. However, if you could take a look at this prototype, this was a very, very nice game. It was one of the few Atari games from that time, or ever I should say, that had music. That took a lot of extra memory to do that, and the graphics were also just outstanding. Alright, so the question is, why wasn't the game released? Well, according to AtariProtos.com, Coleco shut down its Atari game production in 1984 and focused all their attention on creating games for their own system and for the Atom computer. I think I'd like to look at this game and see that it kind of reminds me of what would be like a little kid's version of Pitfall. So definitely a cool game that sadly was never released. In this catalog from 1983, you'll see that Atari had plans to release several games with Disney themes, such as Donald Duck's Speedboat, Dumbo's Flying Circus, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Snow White. Out of all these games, the only one that was actually released was The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Alright, in Donald Duck's Speedboat, the objective is to get through a boat race as quickly as possible without crashing into obstacles, and the better the time you finish, the better your award. You can get a gold, silver, or bronze trophy. Now, if the game sounds simple, it's not, because these obstacles just pop up out of nowhere, and you've got to learn to maneuver very quickly through these different rocks and seaweed and all kinds of stuff. Definitely a fun game for young and old alike. Alright, next we have Dumbo's Flying Circus. This was programmed by Peter Naday and Jerome Domerat in 1983. How the game works is that you are basically Dumbo flying around the screen, and you have to catch or shoot balloons before they reach the top of the screen, kind of like Kaboom in reverse. Some balloons have bombs attached to them and are deadly to touch, so they must be shot down using peanuts from your trunk. And every once in a while you'll see a clown riding on the balloon, so you have to shoot the balloon and catch the clown before he hits the bottom. If the clown makes it to the top of the screen, he'll stay up there and begin to drop things on you. Every time 3 balloons reach the top of the screen, the ceiling gets slightly lower. Okay, the ceiling can be raised a little bit by catching clowns or winning the bonus round. At the end of each wave, you're presented with a bonus round where your friend, Timothy the Mouse, comes flying from the left side of the screen, and if you catch him before he bounces off to the right, you earn bonus points and he'll raise the ceiling a bit. After the bonus round, you're shown a status screen which displays the number of clowns you caught and the number of lives you have left. And after 2 waves, you are presented with this intermission where Dumbo flies around the screen with a banner that says Dumbo. Honestly, I love this game. I think it's a lot of fun. Dumbo was one of my, had to be one of my all-time favorite Disney movies. I just really love that song, Baby of Mine, especially when Alison Krauss and Union Station did it. Actually, though, I have to agree with AtariProtos.com that I think this game is a little difficult for children, but I think actually slowing it down just a little bit would have made the game just fine. And I think that adults would really enjoy playing this game. It's just a shame that it wasn't released, because I really had a lot of fun playing this game. You can too, so head over to AtariAge.com and download the ROM and give it a try. Alright, in Disney Snow White, this was one of 2 prototypes that were created. This was programmed by Greg Easter, and it was set to be released in 1983. Now, in this first scene, you're trying to catch diamonds and rubies in the mine, and now you're trying to jump on a log and make it to the other side. This game's very glitchy. There were several issues with the game as far as play went and consistency. However, it was more finished, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, than the other prototype. It actually has sound and, you know, a plot. Now in the final scene, you are running through the Enchanted Forest trying to find Prince Charming, and Prince Charming is represented by that little white line. It seems like the programmers had more plans in mind with this game. However, with the game being canceled, they were not able to add on to it more, which is a shame because it was a pretty nice concept for its time, including having the music and the graphics. So, I mean, it could have been a lot more, but what we are left with is still pretty cool for its time. Activision's Freeway is probably one of the most iconic games from that time period, and definitely one of Activision's most well-known games. It basically is a chicken trying to cross the road without getting hit by cars. But did you know originally when David Crane created this game, he had something in mind, and it wasn't a chicken trying to cross the road? In what has been called the Bloody Human Freeway, David Crane had a man trying to cross the road who keeps getting splattered. He claimed he got inspired to create this by watching someone try to cross Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. Thankfully, they were able to talk him out of releasing the game in this way. For many years, the game Kombat was released with the Atari 2600. The game has pretty much become synonymous with the Atari itself. But did you know that at one time they had actually planned on releasing a sequel? Alright, set to be released in 1982, Kombat 2 was going to be the sequel to that iconic game Kombat. However, there was a couple things that were wrong with it. For instance, they added this new terrain, and which made it kind of hard to maneuver around, and also the fact that you had it was only tanks. Now, you know, the original Kombat was tanks, and you had airplanes and jets. Well, this one, they were trying to make it a little more interesting, and I guess probably a little more realistic with having the trees and the rocks. And then in later levels, you actually had like kind of like castles or different areas, you know, such as demolished buildings, I guess is what they were supposed to be. And you had infinite lives in the original Kombat, where you just tallied up the grand total of hits at the end of the level. Well, this one, each player had 3 lives, and whoever was standing at the end, you know, left standing, was the winner. One problem with this game was that it was one player only. At this time period, a lot more people were playing games by themselves, so therefore AI would have been a big improvement for this game. Also, the fact that there were only tanks and you didn't have the airplanes and the jets anymore also kind of worked against it. Some fans believe that there are actually versions of the game out there somewhere that may have AI and also the airplanes, but it's hard to say. Again, this game was not released, and hopefully someday later versions of the game can be found, or even homebrews that step the game up a little bit. At the beginning of this episode, I mentioned the game Six Pack, which was based on the movie with that title. A few years ago, somebody discovered this prototype that was made by 20th Century Fox, and they believe that this may have actually been the long-lost Six Pack game. However, any of you that have seen the movie Six Pack know that Kenny Rogers actually was a stock car racer, and this game seems to be about drag racing, but this wouldn't, of course, be the first time that a video game adaptation of a movie wasn't accurate. Whether this was the game or not is really hard to tell, as when the game was discovered there was no manual, there was no box, nothing. So whether this game is Six Pack or not, it's hard to tell. It may possibly be, or maybe it may be something else. The gentleman at AtariProtos.com thinks it may be based on a movie called Heart Like a Wheel. So again, hopefully more information will come out soon about what this title actually is. Well, that brings us to the end of today's video, and I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if you like today's video, don't forget to click that like button. And again, I want to take this time to thank each and every one of you that have stopped by and watched my videos, and I appreciate the subscribers and the likes and the positive feedback from all of you. And again, I want to thank you all for giving me a moment of your time. If you'd like to learn more about the prototypes in this video and others like them, please visit AtariProtos.com to learn all you ever wanted to know and more about long-lost Atari games. Matt Reichert is a living, breathing, walking Atari encyclopedia, and he is the guy to visit. So check out his site, and don't forget to drop him a line and tell him that Anthony sent you. In the next episode, we will continue on discussing more of these Atari 2600 prototypes. And until then, again, I want to thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you next time. Until then, have a blessed day. See you soon. Bye.